Hi everybody, it's Chris and welcome back to another video. Now this one is a vinyl finds video. Now having said that, I've also got some CDs to share as well. So stuff that I've picked up over the last month or so. Now I have been looking, maybe not with the kind of urgency that I often do, but I have been looking and I've just not found very much. So the last vinyl finds video I made was probably over a month ago now, and I haven't found much in the interim. So I've got a dozen singles to share with you at the start. I've got a couple of CDs and probably about 10 albums or so. So let's start with the 45s. The first one I picked up locally, this is Time Has Come Again by the Chambers Brothers from 1966 on Direction Records. This is, it says here, extended version. That's about 4.5 minutes. I think the single version, or one of the single versions, was about 2 minutes long. The album version is about 11 minutes long. It overstays its welcome a little bit, but this is a really nice version of it. Really great track from the Chambers Brothers. Next up is a couple of, got a few new wave stuff, records that I've shared with you. Something I bought online, super cheap actually, really pleased to get this. This is from 1978. It's on Deptford Fun City Records. It's alternative TV and action time vision. This is a great track, really pleased to pick that up. Been looking for that for a while. I haven't seen it in the wild for ages actually, and I should have bought it when I saw it before, but I managed to get an eBay copy and won an auction for a really low price, so that was pleasing. Also picked up from a local record store, I think this could be Alternative TV's first single, possibly. This is called How Much Longer, Backed With You Bastard. It's also on Deptford Fun City Records, so really nice to pick that up. And then from 76 on Island Records, Eddie and the Hot Rods and Woolly Bully, which is the Sam and, is it Pharaoh's single from the 60s, but a nice version of that. And then a couple of Buzzcocks singles. So a slightly later one with Harmony in My Head, which I think came in a variety of picture covers actually, certainly different colours. And the other one is Promises, back with lipstick. Now I thought I had this and I've not picked it up for ages thinking I've got it, and when I checked my collection I didn't. So there we are, Promises by Buzzcocks, great track that is. Something a little bit rarer, a little bit less common. It's not the single I really want by this guy. The single I really want is it No One Came, or can't remember anyway. But this is Johnny Moped. This is from 77, I think, or 78 from Chiswick Records. A song called Little Queenie, which is a Chuck Berry song. And it's backed with, the B-side actually is better. It's Hard Loving Man, which is a live version recorded in early 78 at the Roundhouse in London. But that was a nice little pickup, Johnny Moped. And then Alberto y los Trios Paranoia, Snuff Rock EP on Stiff Records from 77, which the lead-off track is Kill, and then Gobbing on Life is the second track. On side one, it's got two others. On the other side, something very different, a bit of Edwin Starr, Stopper on Sight. This is on Rick Tick Records, which I've never seen before actually. I know this eventually came out in the late 60s on Motown, and for me this is Edwin Starr's best track actually. I remember it on the one of the Motown samplers, the best ofs, it was the silver coloured one that featured on there, and I love it actually. This is from 19, may even be 65, 66. But Stopper on Sight, SOS, Edwin Starr. And then a reissue, I bought it first time round actually, Rock and Roll Damnation. I bought that in 78, having heard it on the radio. Alan Freeman played it. He played it and then he lifted up the needle and he played half of it again. He loved it so much and I loved it. And I remember buying the 12-inch that day actually down in a record shop down in Poole. And this is a 1980 repress of it, but it's nice to see in a picture sleeve. It's got the same B-side as the original, although it does say that the A-side here is taken from the album If You Want Blood, which is a live album. It's not, that's a studio recording. So anyway, nice to pick that up in a picture sleeve. And then a track by a band called The Marbles, which you may or may not have heard of actually. This is called Only One Woman, which is a Bee Gees song. And I think they may well be on the same label as The Marbles actually. Anyway, this features Graham Bonnet on vocals, who went on to play on Down to Earth by Rainbow and sang on two of their big hits actually, Since You've Been Gone and All Night Long. So Graham Bonnet and The Marbles and Only One Woman. And then a couple of classics really, bit of garage I suppose, Question Mark and the Mysterians on Cameo Parkway. and this is I Need Somebody and the classic 96 Tears. So they were nice finds. So let's have a quick look at a couple of CDs. People who watch my videos a lot will know that I'm a big Deep Purple fan, actually, so a couple of Deep Purple related CDs for you to kick off. The first one, this came out in 2015, so 8 years later. As is quite common with this particular band, they've remastered it, remixed it, repurposed it, everything else, and it's become much bigger kind of collection. So this is the Purple album by Whitesnake. It's it's a 2 CD plus a DVD set. And it has in it a load of Deep Purple covers. Now, I had reservations about, because I did buy it first time round, I had reservations about getting it actually, because I think some of the versions just shouldn't be touched. But there's some quite interesting covers actually, and obviously David Coverdale sang on the original, so why wouldn't he? But we've got Burn, Lay Down, Stay Down, both in the album Burn, Love Child, Holy Man, which was a Glenn Hughes song, and he doesn't do a bad version of it, but it doesn't touch Glenn Hughes' version that was on Stormbringer. The Gypsy, which is a fantastic song, Lady Double Dealer, Might Just Take Your Life, Mistreated, Stormbringer, Sail Away, which is one of my favourite Deep Purple songs. You Keep On Moving, which was the last track on Come Taste the Band, Lady Luck, Coming Home, You Fool No One, and Soldier of Fortune. It also has some live tracks, but the thing that's really, really interesting on here are 4 songs that were recorded in 1972, I think, by David Coverdale and the Fabulosa Brothers. And those particular tracks were on a tape, and they were sent to Deep Purple as an audition tape. And they were the tracks that got him the gig as the lead singer in Deep Purple. So it's really interesting to hear him sing these songs. Now, they're quite soulful, actually. So we've got, for example, Dancing in the Street, and we've got Get Ready as 2 of the tracks that he does sing on there. And, you know, it's very distinctive, David Coverdale, and you can see what drew Deep Purple members into wanting this guy in their band. Originally, they wanted Paul Rodgers, and it is that kind of husky, kind of soulful sound that he comes up with on those demos. So, interesting CD, some nice cover versions, but from a Deep Purple fan point of view, those tapes are absolute gold. So that was nice. And then a couple of CDs by the Dead Daisies. The Dead Daisies are kind of one of those supergroups with a revolving door where lots of different people play in the band. And these 2 have a Deep Purple a connection in that Glenn Hughes is the lead vocalist on these 2. Now, I saw Glenn Hughes live recently in Frome in Somerset at the Cheese and Grain. He was fantastic. This guy is 70-odd. His voice is sensational, absolutely sensational, and he's on brilliant vocal form on this. This is the later one from 22. This is from 2021. I think this one is better actually. It does feature a track called Like No Other, in brackets Bassline, which is just brilliant. I absolutely love it. So some kind of medium pace rockers, some things that are a little bit more upbeat, but the guitar player is Doug Aldrich, who featured in Whitesnake. And so great player, also played in Dio, I think. But Glenn Hughes, absolute star of the show's vocals on these 2 albums are brilliant. So glad to pick those up. Okay, on to the albums now. So the first one is, in fact, I'll show you the charity shop. I don't know about you, but charity shops in my area are crap, really. And I've picked up very, very few things, actually. I picked up this the other day. This was 50p in a charity shop near me. It's in absolutely immaculate condition. And often when you see something that's immaculate, you know it's not going to be very good. And, you know, you may well remember, this is Variations by Andrew Lloyd Webber. And he had a hit with the song. I can't remember which variation that is. But the reason I got this is this is recorded in 78. And round about that time, there was a band called Colosseum 2 doing the rounds. And Colosseum 2 were basically a fusion band that kind of came out of Colosseum 1 with John Heisman, but actually enlisted the talents of Don Airey and John Mole and Gary Moore. And 1 or 2 tracks on here are proper jazz fusion. So we've got, as I said, Don Airy, John Heisman, John Moll, Gary Moore playing on here, and of course Andrew Lloyd Webber, and also his not Andrew Lloyd Webber, Julian Lloyd Webber plays on here. Andrew Lloyd Webber just composes the stuff. But Rod Argent is also, of Argent fame, is also on here as well. So one or two of the tracks really interesting, instrumental, not particularly classical, but real jazz fusion, quite interesting. And I think I'm going to do, if there's interest, I'm going to do a video, I think, on some of my jazz fusion albums actually quite soon. The other one I picked up at the same charity shop actually was a probe sampler called Handle with Care. And so this is, I'm not sure what year this came out in the 70s, somewhere probably 1970, I would think, 70, 71, somewhere around about that. It's got Steppenwolf, B.B. King, James Gang is on here, Three Dog Night. But the two tracks that interested me the most were two tracks from a band I'd not really heard of actually, and the band is called Freedom. I don't know anything about them and I haven't investigated further, but the two tracks on here, Nobody and Frustrated Woman, actually are pretty good. So you know, just for 50p I was quite pleased to pick that up. You can't get much for 50p nowadays, so that was quite nice. Probe sampler. A little bit more sensible now. So I found this album the other day and had to buy it. I like this person. In fact, on my Punk New Wave album video that I recorded recently, I showed The Scream by Susie and the Banshees, and it's very different to this album, but this is also really good. This is called A Kiss in the Dreamhouse, which I'm sure you're familiar with if you like the work of Susie and the Banshees. So obviously a cover very much influenced, especially at the front, by Gustav Klimt. This is a different sounding Susie from The Scream, and even I think, was it Juju that came before that? Juju was quite dark, quite goth-like actually. This is much kind of poppier. It's got strings, proper strings on it, not just kind of keyboard strings, but proper strings. The opening track, Cascade, is marvellous. Absolutely love that. Melt, Slow Drive. This is a great album. Really enjoy it. And one thing that really stands out here, and I don't know much about him particularly, but he's the guitarist, John McGeoch. Now, he's got a wonderful guitar sound. He must have influenced quite a few guitarists, and I do wonder whether or not people, because when is this from? 1981, 82. He must have influenced people like maybe even Johnny Marr, maybe even The Edge or something like that. Wonderful guitar sound. So this is a really enjoyable album, and you know it was £6. So for me that's not bad. It's got a you know, a lyric in it. I think you also get somewhere in here, yeah, a little fan club kind of insert as well. So A Kiss in the Dreamhouse, Susie, nice stuff. Next up is a little bit of hard rock. So this is the second album by a Welsh band called Budgie. So Budgie was the drummer. There's a connection, didn't realise that. Budgie is the drummer on Susie, but this obviously is a completely different thing. This is Welsh band, metal band Budgie, three-piece from Cardiff, I think. This is recorded at Rockfield Studios in Monmouthshire, where lots of albums were recorded. This is their second album, and I like their first album. I've got that, I love that. And their third album, which is called Never Turn Your Back on a Friend, I think is my favourite album actually. It's a bit less Black Sabbathy than their first album. The songs are more concise. Whiskey River, Rocking Man, good tracks. They have this kind of thing where they have some really bizarre song titles, and this album is no different. So Hot as a Docker's Armpit closes side one, but lots of the songs, as you can see by, I think there's 9 tracks on here, they're much shorter. It's less kind of riff laden, a little bit more kind of concise hard rock songs, but a really good album. Lovely Roger Dean cover, which is always nice to have. Not as good as their first, not as good as their third, or In for the Kill, but a really good addition to my Budgie collection. Next up is from 1966 or 1965, one of the two. And I think this is possibly the third album by the Rolling Stones. Now, if there's anyone in the States watching this, and I do have some people who from North America that do watch the videos and comment, this probably looks a little bit different from the version you may well be familiar with. So this is the album Out of Our Heads. It's, as I said, it's from 65. It's on Decca Records. Red Decca label. I think it's a mono. Yeah, it is a mono press of it. I think it's a first press, actually. The interesting thing about this, they've got a few covers on it. So they've got some originals, but quite a lot of covers. So we've got Chuck Berry, Talking About You song. That's on here. Good Times, Sam Cooke is on here. So we've got a few covers, quite a lot actually, and only a few originals. But there's 2 tracks that are on the US. In fact, this is quite different, I think, track-wise. There's the track listing. But it's very different from the US version. Now, in the Punk New Wave video I did recently, I talked about how irritating it was when people bought out albums that didn't include the hit singles. And this is a classic example of that. So round about this time, and in fact on the US version, we've got The Last Time and Satisfaction. Now, they are right up there with being 2 of my favourite Stones songs, and they're not on this album. Now, I knew it when I bought it, I know. But they should be on here. It would have made it so much better. It's a decent album. I liked it, I enjoy it. But it's not as good as it could have been with The Last Time and with Satisfaction. But a nice addition to my Rolling Stones collection, which isn't vast. It's probably about 6 or so albums by then. So moving on to 1970. This is the 4th album by British band Free. And if you saw that cover and you didn't know who the band was, you still wouldn't, because they've got the title Highway, but they haven't got the mention of the band. This is an album that came after their classic album, or often seen as their classic album, which is Fire and Water. That's the album that features the title track, which is a real good rocking classic actually, and of course featured All Right Now, which was very different actually to the majority of stuff that they did. This also comes out probably, it's about 3 months after that charted. I think it got to either number 1 or number 2 in the UK, and maybe the same in the US possibly. So the expectations were high, but this really bombed as an album, and it bombed as an album for lots of reasons. It's quite different to Fire and Water. It's much kind of gentler. It's got quite a lot of ballads, some classic Free ballads, but quite a lot of ballads. And it also lacks kind of like a real kind of definitive single. I think the Stealer was possibly a single on here. But a couple of tracks, Be My Friend, a beautiful, beautiful ballad, as is Soon I Will Be Gone, just gorgeous. I mean, Paul Kossoff, his guitar playing is so wonderfully understated. It's such a sad loss. And I think this wasn't long, I don't think, after the Isle of Wight festival. And I think, Paul Kossoff was very good friends, I believe, anyway, with Jimi Hendrix. And Jimi Hendrix hadn't long passed away. And I think Paul Kossoff was battling with his own demons at this time anyway. So his playing is very understated, as it is in most Free things, but really understated here. Paul Rodgers' vocals are always gorgeous, and they certainly are on here. That guy's got such a beautiful voice. So Be My Friend, Soon I Will Be Gone, great. Ride on Pony, which is a kind of classic Free song, highway song. It's not bad. I enjoy it personally, but I can see why potentially people might not have understood it, especially if they'd been tuned into the band after All Right Now. So I went to Bristol Record Fair 2 weeks ago, and it's usually 4 floors in this place called the Bristol Beacon, and it's usually brilliant. And it was all right. There was considerably less sellers there this time, and quite a lot of the stuff they were selling was actually looked like the stuff that was left over from the last fair. And I only bought 1 album, and that was £2, and I actually wish I hadn't bought it because it's rubbish. It was this album. So Neil Schon and Jan Hammer. Now, both of those artists I like a lot. What a dreadful cover, isn't it? Absolutely painful cover. So these 2 guys here. So Neil Schon had played originally with Journey as quite a young guitarist, and had played alongside Carlos Santana in Caravanserai and Santana 3 to great effect. Absolutely brilliant. He moved on then to Journey, who went through a kind of a jazz rock phase, if you like, and then moved into roundabout, just before this time, roundabout sort of the Escape and Frontiers kind of stuff. So real good, US hard rock stuff. This guy is a seriously good player. He can play any genre. He is one of the most underrated guitarists of all time, without a doubt. He's brilliant. Jan Hammer played in the original Mahavishnu Orchestra. He has played with all the guitar greats. He's played with John McLaughlin, he's played with Jeff Beck, he's played with Tommy Bolin, and now he's playing with Jan Hammer, with Neil Shan. Now, I kind of didn't know much about this album. I was kind of expecting it maybe to be an amalgamation of these two guys' talents. Oh my God, it really isn't. It's kind of like a lot of, very plodding, average, soft rock kind of stuff. Neil Shan does the vocals. Stick to guitar, mate, because vocals aren't your thing. Good job you had Steve Perry and Greg Rowley in your band. It's all right. It was only £2, but I wish I hadn't bothered, because it's another thing that I've got to do something with, either move it on or put it in the collection somewhere. So not great. So I'm a big Deep Purple fan, and I've got a big collection. But there was one album that was missing from my UK discography of the band, and it was the 25th anniversary of what is often seen as their best album, and it's Machine Head. So this album came out in it came out in the 70s, but I'm talking about the reissue. Came out as a double album on purple vinyl. I spent more money on this than I've spent on albums for a very long time, because I just wanted it in my collection. And what you've got here is the original album, and then you've got the 97 remixes. So you've got a couple of extra tracks as well, including quadraphonic mixes and so on. I just wanted this in my collection. Now, I already possess the CD. I already possess the CD version of it, which I bought in '97. I didn't buy the vinyl at the time, so I've got the CD of it. That's fantastic, and that supplements obviously really nicely the Essay CD that I bought quite a long time ago, and of course that also supplements the original vinyl that I've also got. So this is the original from 1972 on Purple Records, and of course if you've got that version, well, you have to have the quadraphonic version as well. So the quadraphonic version came out also in 72 and has slightly different mix. Obviously it's quadraphonic to the original. And of course, if you've got that one, you probably might even have the Australian version of it as well, because you bought this thinking it was the UK one, and then when you got home you realised it was the Australian one. And of course, if you've got that version, then you probably should have the picture disc, which came out round about the time that they reconvened back in mid-80s. This one includes a poster as well. And if you've got that version, well, you may as well have a couple of other colour versions. So what about the French version that came out, I think, in the 80s, which came out on nice purple vinyl? And if you've got that one, well, why not go for the Czechoslovakian version of it as well, which is on green vinyl? And of course, if you've got that one, well, you might as well have the German one on Horzu Records, which is slightly different because it's got a different edge to it. And if you've got that one, well, hey, why don't you have the Spanish one, which has got a different cover, because it's got what usually is on the back of the cover on the front of the cover. Have I got a problem? Nice to see you. Thanks for tuning in. Catch up again soon. Cheers.